The moment she said it, my stomach dropped so hard I thought I might actually throw up. "I would," she said quietly, looking straight at me. "If you'd just ask." My hand was still wrapped around a coffee mug, and I had no idea what to do with it. I just sat there on her back porch, staring at her like she'd spoken a language I suddenly forgot how to understand. "My name's Evan. I'm 28, born and raised in a small town in Missouri, where people still wave when they drive past, and gossip travels faster than the mail. I work at a local appliance repair shop. Nothing impressive. I fix broken washers, heaters that quit in winter, refrigerators that should have been replaced 10 years ago. I'm good with my hands, that's what people say about me. I rent a small one-story house on a quiet street. 2 doors down lives Rachel. Rachel is 31. She's a nurse at the local clinic. Divorced. No kids. We've known each other for about 2 years. It started simple. Just hellos when we took out the trash. A wave across the yard. Then short talks. Then longer ones. Somehow, without either of us noticing, it became normal to stop and stand there talking like time didn't matter. It always felt easy with her, even when we didn't say much. Last Saturday, she called me in the morning. Her water heater had gone out. She said she'd tried YouTube and a wrench, but gave up before she flooded her laundry room. I told her I'd stop by after my shift. It turned out to be nothing serious, just a busted pilot light. Took me maybe 20 minutes. She insisted on coffee after. We sat on her small back porch, the kind with a crooked step and wind chimes that never shut up. It was warm, quiet, the kind of afternoon where nothing feels rushed. We talked about everything and nothing. Her shifts at the clinic, a patient who tried to flirt with her even though he had a broken leg. Her dog waking her up at 3 in the morning because it thought the fridge sounded weird. I laughed. She laughed. It was the same rhythm we always had. Then there was a pause. I looked at her. I don't even know why I said it. I smiled and joked, light and careless. "You should get married." Quote, I meant it like a throwaway line, something dumb you say when silence starts to feel too close. She didn't laugh. She looked down at her coffee for a second, then back at me. Her voice was soft, but serious in a way that made my chest tighten. "I would," she said. "If you'd just ask." The wind chimes rattled behind us. Too loud. Everything felt too loud. I froze. I couldn't tell if my heart was racing or completely stopped. She didn't say anything else. She just stood up, like the moment hadn't cracked something wide open. "I need to fold laundry," she said, casual again, and went inside. I stayed there for a couple minutes after she left, finished the coffee even though it had gone cold, nodded to myself like an idiot. Then I left. I didn't see her for 3 days. I couldn't stop replaying that moment. Not even the words, really. Just the way she looked when she said them. It didn't feel like a joke. It felt like something she'd been holding on to for a long time. I didn't sleep much. The line kept popping up everywhere. While brushing my teeth, while tying my boots, while fixing a microwave at work. I didn't know what to do with it. Part of me wanted to pretend it never happened. Let it fade back into our usual silence. But this wasn't silence, it was exposure. Like I'd been standing in front of her for years thinking I was invisible, only to realize she'd been seeing me the whole time. By Thursday I was losing my mind. I buried myself in work, said yes to every job, kept moving so I didn't have to think. That afternoon I was wiping grease off my hands behind the counter when the bell over the shop door rang. It was Rachel. She was still in her blue scrubs, hair tied back, looking tired in that way nurses always do. She gave me a small wave. "Hey," she said. "Hey," I replied. She didn't come closer. "I need a power strip. The one in my kitchen died." I grabbed one off the wall. $10. She handed me a 20. When I reached for change, she shook her head. "Keep it." There was a pause. Thick, uncomfortable. "I wasn't trying to mess with you," she said suddenly, "the other day." I wasn't joking, but I wasn't expecting anything either. Quote, I didn't trust my mouth enough to open it. "Okay," was all I managed. She nodded, like that answer told her everything she needed. She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. "You're allowed to want something, Evan," she said, "even if it scares you." Then she left. I stood there holding the $10 bill she didn't want back, knowing I'd just missed something important and afraid I might miss it forever. That night I sat on my porch longer than usual. I didn't turn on the porch light. I didn't play music or scroll my phone. I just sat there with a beer in my hand, listening to nothing. The street was quiet in that familiar way small towns get after dark. A few porch lights down the block. A dog barking somewhere far off. That was it. Her words kept circling my head. You're allowed to want something, even if it scares you. The problem was, I did want something. I just didn't know what to do once I admitted it out loud. The next morning, I walked past her house on my way to work. Her curtains were closed. Her car wasn't there. Probably already at the clinic. I slowed down like I always did, out of habit, then caught myself and kept walking. I almost left a note on her porch. Something simple. Thanks for the coffee. Or nice seeing you. Anything. But I didn't. I drove to work and sat in my truck for 10 minutes, staring at the steering wheel, feeling like I was waiting on myself to become someone braver. Friday came with gray skies and that sharp late spring cold that sneaks through your jacket like it doesn't care what season it's supposed to be. I was off work. Normally, I would have slept in or grabbed breakfast somewhere. Instead, I woke up early with the same tight feeling in my chest. I knew exactly where I needed to go. Around 9:30, I walked down the street toward her place. I wasn't dressed up. Just jeans, a gray hoodie, boots that had seen better days. My hands stayed in my pockets the whole way. I stood on her porch longer than I want to admit. A full minute, maybe 2, staring at the door like it might open on its own. It didn't, so I knocked. She opened the door about 10 seconds later. She was in sweats, hair pulled into a loose bun, no makeup. She looked surprised, but not shocked. "Hey," she said quietly. "Hey, everything okay?" "Not really," I said. She stepped aside and let me in. Her house smelled like coffee and clean laundry. It felt calm, familiar, like a place I already knew. We didn't sit down right away. I stood near the kitchen counter. She leaned against the other side, arms crossed, waiting. "I thought maybe I was just the neighbor," I said. "The guy who fixes stuff, someone you joke with." She didn't interrupt. "I've been replaying the last 2 years in my head. The soup you brought me when I was sick. You walking my dog when my leg was in that brace. The late-night texts. The dumb jokes." She gave a small smile. "You didn't miss it," she said. "You just didn't believe it." That hit harder than I expected. "I don't have a ring," I blurted. She tilted her head. "Evan, I'm not asking for a proposal." "I know," I said quickly. "I just mean, I've never really done this. Not seriously." She stepped closer. "Me neither." Quote. We stood there in the middle of her kitchen, close enough that I could smell her shampoo. She wasn't pressuring me. She wasn't asking for promises. Just standing there. "I don't want to keep pretending I don't feel something," I said. "Then don't." "I'm not good with big gestures." "That's okay," she said. "I don't need fireworks. Just honesty." We ended up sitting on the couch with 2 mugs of coffee, no music, no distractions, just talking about work, about how she got into nursing, about the first time she noticed me fixing my truck shirtless in the driveway. She admitted she'd pretended to need help with her hose that week just to talk to me. I laughed and told her I'd never had someone make a water hose sound so flirty. Nothing big happened. No kiss. No dramatic moment. Just comfort. When I stood to leave, she walked me to the door. "Thanks for not waiting another 2 years," she said. The next few days felt lighter. Not perfect, just easier. We started texting more. Small things at first. Then, real conversations. Tuesday night, she invited me over for dinner. She made spaghetti. We ate on the couch with plates on our laps and old sitcoms playing in the background. At one point, her leg brushed mine and neither of us moved. Wednesday was busy. Thursday, I texted her asking if she wanted coffee after her shift. She said she'd let me know. She never did. Friday afternoon, I pulled into my driveway and saw a black SUV parked in front of her house. Clean. New. Not from around here. I watched as she stepped out onto her porch with a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, well-dressed. He said something to her. She nodded. Then he hugged her. Not a long hug. but not nothing either. I went inside my house and sat on the couch with my boots still on, staring at a blank TV screen, feeling that sinking weight in my gut. Saturday afternoon, there was a knock on my door. It was Rachel, still in scrubs, holding a folder. "Can we talk?" she asked. And I knew whatever happened next would decide whether I kept hiding or finally showed up. I stepped aside and let her in without saying much. She didn't sit down. She stood near the window, the light catching the edge of the folder in her hands. I could tell she was nervous, even though she was trying not to show it. "You didn't text me back," she said. "You didn't either," I replied. She sighed. "I had a long day. One of the nurses called out and I stayed late. Then my ex stopped by." That word hit me harder than I expected, ex. "He needed my signature on some old paperwork," she said, lifting the folder slightly. "That's all that was." I nodded, but I still felt tight inside. "Nothing's going on between us," she continued. "We've been done for 3 years." "I know," I said, though part of me knew I hadn't really known at all. She took a step closer. "No, you don't. Because you haven't looked at me since I walked in." She was right. I finally met her eyes. "I didn't want to assume anything," I said. "But I did anyway." Her shoulders softened. "I get it. I really do. But I need to be able to talk to you without having to prove myself every time something feels uncomfortable." "You're right," I said quietly. "I don't want to pull away from you. I just don't know how to do this without messing it up." She set the folder down on the counter. "Then don't hide. That's all I'm asking." There was a long silence. Not angry, just heavy. "Are we okay?" I finally asked. She looked straight at me. "We are. If you stop disappearing when things start to matter." "I'll try," I said. "I need more than try," she replied gently. "I'll show up," I said, and I meant it. She stepped forward and wrapped one arm around me. It wasn't dramatic, just warm, real. Then she pulled back and smiled faintly. "Next time, just ask. It's easier than guessing." After she left, I stood there staring at the folder she'd forgotten on my counter, paperwork, a past that wasn't chasing me. Just something she was closing the door on. Sunday morning came slow and quiet. The air already felt heavy with early summer heat. I made coffee and sat by the window, thinking, not spiraling, just thinking. Around 10, I found myself in the garage digging through old boxes, tools, cords, parts from jobs I barely remembered. At the bottom of one box, I found a small metal tin. Inside was an old broken watch, some loose screws, and a cheap silver ring I'd bought years ago when I thought I knew what love was. I held it for a second, then put it back. Instead, I grabbed a small box of brass hooks, the kind you use to fix cabinet doors. I picked up 2 coffees from the diner and walked toward Rachel's house. She was sitting on her porch, barefoot, hair up, phone in her hand. She looked up when she heard the steps. "Hey," she said. "Hey." I handed her the coffee. "Hazelnut." "1 sugar." She smiled. "You remembered." We sat side by side, sipping quietly. The street carried on like it always did, a mower in the distance, a kid riding past on a bike. "I keep thinking about what you said," I told her, "about not fixing something by yourself." She nodded, listening. "I'm not the guy with a big plan," I said, "but I know what I feel, and I know what I don't want to lose." I pulled the box of hooks from my pocket and held it out to her. "Your cabinet under the sink, it keeps swinging open," quote. She laughed softly. "You're ridiculous." "Maybe," I said, "but I'm here." She took the box from my hand. "You're not just here," she said. "You're showing up." I took a breath. "I'm not joking this time." "I know." She leaned closer. "So what are we doing?" "We're doing this," I said, "if you want to." "I do," she replied without hesitation. She reached for my hand and laced her fingers through mine. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was standing on the edge of something anymore. We stayed on the porch longer than either of us planned, not talking much, just sitting there with our hands together, watching the street move, like it always had. Nothing around us changed, but something between us had. It didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel heavy. It felt settled. After a while, she leaned back in her chair and smiled. "You're still helping me fix that cabinet." I wouldn't dream of getting out of it, I said. That afternoon we went inside and fixed it together. She held the door while I screwed in the hooks. It was simple, domestic in the quietest way. When we were done, she tested it twice like she didn't quite trust it yet. "See?" I said. "Solid." "Just like you," she teased. That night, she came over to my place for dinner. We ordered takeout because neither of us felt like cooking. We ate at my small kitchen table, legs brushing now and then. Still no big gestures. No rush. Just ease. Over the next few weeks, that's how it stayed. Easy. We didn't make some big announcement. We didn't define things right away. We just kept choosing each other in small ways. Coffee, in the mornings when our schedules lined up. Texts during long shifts. Quiet nights on the couch. One evening, about a month later, we were sitting on her porch again. Same chairs. Same wind chimes. She leaned her head against my shoulder like it had always belonged there. "You know," she said, "I wasn't sure you'd ever knock on my door." "I almost didn't," I admitted. She looked up at me. "I'm glad you did." I was too. Life didn't suddenly turn into something perfect. Work stayed busy. Days got long. We still had misunderstandings. But we talked, now. We didn't disappear when things felt uncomfortable. A few months later, we stood in the kitchen of her house, cooking dinner together, music playing low. She reached for something in a drawer and bumped into me. "Careful," I said. "I might get used to this." She smiled. "Good." Later that night, sitting on the couch, I looked at her and felt that same quiet certainty I'd been carrying for a while now. "Hey," I said. "Yeah?" "I'm not joking," I said. "You know that, right?" She met my eyes. "I know." I didn't pull out a ring. I didn't get down on one knee. I just asked her, simple and honest, the way she'd always wanted. And she said yes. Not because it was perfect. Not because it was dramatic. But because we finally stopped pretending what we felt didn't matter. And that was enough.